We have Jennifer Rodriguez, the Executive Director of the Youth Law Center, and she is online. Jennifer, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. If you would like to go ahead and place your name and affiliation and begin your testimony.
Wonderful. I'm Jennifer Rodriguez. I'm the Executive Director of the Youth Law Center. And good afternoon, Senator Wilson and committee members. Thank you for allowing me to testify to you today on behalf of SB 181. My organization, the Youth Law Center, is a national legal advocacy organization focused on protecting and advancing the rights of children and youth in foster care and juvenile justice so they have the opportunity to thrive. And one of the primary goals at the Youth Law Center is working closely with developmental experts across the country, such as Dr. Charlie Zena from Tulane University and Dr. Mary Dozier from University of Delaware, in order to apply what they know definitively is necessary for the healthy development of children in foster care to policy and practice in the systems across the country that care for our children. These two experts on young children in foster care requested that I testify on their behalf today, and I'm going to do my best, although I will be an inadequate substitute. So I just want to start by saying that science is very clear, although in many cases the way our systems operate undermines that science. At the Youth Law Center, we're currently working with leadership in 12 states and approximately 80 jurisdictions across the country through our Quality Parenting Initiative to realign their foster care system around what science tells us is critical for children's development, which is attachment and relationship between children and the person who is parenting them. And this advocacy really informs what we know about why the action proposed in this bill to immediately search for and engage relatives who the child might live with, ideally even before removal, is critical. We began our own work at Youth Law Center with advocacy and policy and practice changes designed to meet the particular developmental needs of infants and young children who are in foster care. And while the importance of this period of development has been widely recognized for some time, child welfare policy and practice often contradicts what we know young children need. And that research tells us secure attachment and stability, it's the best predictor of success for children, and we have to do everything we can to provide and protect that. The research has shown that it can cause significant trauma for a child to be removed from long-term caregivers when these searches for relatives are delayed and when relatives are not introduced until later in a child's life, and especially in cases where the child is under 6 years of age. And in fact, research tells us that even one disruption in placement for a child can lead to later emotional, behavioral problems, and all kinds of other biological problems. Too often those delays are caused not because there are not relatives who would be willing and able and capable of loving and parenting their kin, but because the child welfare system delays the search and the approval process. A delay of a day or even a week is an incredibly long period in a young child's life, let alone cases we see of delays of a year or more. These delays result in unnecessary loss and trauma for children that I mentioned do have lifelong consequences for both children, for their families, and their communities. This work of identifying relatives immediately has to be a top priority for the system. And aside from the science, I just want to raise two other perspectives. First, I show up as an advocate not only informed by my experience as a lawyer, but also by my own experience growing up in foster care and lacking connection to my family, to my culture, to my community. In my case, I grew up in foster care believing that family did not want me, not knowing that they had just never been searched for or asked if they wanted to care for me. As a result, I lost my own sense of identity, my language. I had no one other than paid staff and facilities to be in my life. That sense of loss and disconnection I carried throughout my childhood led to very predictable struggles that you just heard about in the research that I cited that landed me in the most restrictive placements and left the foster care system, then the juvenile justice system and the mental health system entirely unequipped to care for me. That initial failure to do the search that was required led to years of instability and disruption for me. I am so lucky to have been able to heal enough to build a good life for myself, but many youth are not so fortunate, and the impact of the system's failure to do early and strong work to connect them with relatives really changes the trajectory of their lives, also changes the trajectory of their children's and their children's lives. Finally, in our Quality Parenting Initiative work, we also see the impact of the failure to do that immediate work to place children with relatives on foster parents. When foster parents do what we ask them to do, which is love a child as if that child is their own child, and then years later a relative is found, it creates an incredibly difficult situation for all the adults that are involved. It too frequently becomes a battle where some family who loves and cares for that child will lose. This is, again, a battle that could have been avoided. Frequently, these situations end up contentious and result in foster families who are our greatest intervention in the child welfare system and our greatest asset quitting completely as foster parents and telling others in their community to avoid working with the system. This has wide impact on the system's capacity, and as Alaska, just like every system across the country, struggles to recruit and retain enough families to care for our children and youth, must be considered. We have to prioritize the changes that are needed to ensure we're not breaking the hearts and spirits of children, their relatives, or the families who step up to care for them in our communities. An immediate placement with relatives is one excellent way to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez, for being available this afternoon and providing testimony.